Well, joining us on set is Sultan Barakat, a professor of public policy at Hamad bin Khalifa University. Good to have you with us on Al Jazeera. All of this is happening at a time when Israel is continuing to carry out attacks on Gaza. 10 Palestinians killed on Thursday, several homes destroyed. It seems fairly obvious that it is, despite what we were seeing in Hind's report there, it is incredibly difficult to do this kind of work when the attacks are still continuing.
Yes, well, the whole plan has left Israel in a position where they can control and dictate the base for everything. You saw how long it's taken to have the simple exchange of prisoners and extraction of the dead bodies and so on. Now it's almost 3 months. And it wasn't intended to take as long. Now, I think the reconstruction will also be stretched as much as possible by the Israelis because it's in their hand what material and expertise and organizations they would allow in to help the Palestinians. It's also in their hand what finance can flow into Gaza Strip. And so far, we haven't really had any commitment for a grand reconstruction budget. I mean, there are talks about annual budget that has been earmarked, but that requires Israel also to facilitate. And of course, the Israelis still have that grand plan of wanting to shift the center of gravity of the Palestinian population and, between brackets, the Palestinian resistance, as far as possible south. So they're wanting to encourage reconstruction further down in the areas of Rafah and close to the Egyptian border. I think they will try and hamper as much as possible any progress in the north of Gaza.
One of the fundamental issues, I would imagine, with any committee that was set up to deal with something on this scale would be how to identify the areas of greatest need when it comes to the people of Gaza. And as you were just saying, that there is an interest, it is within Israel's interest to try to slow this process down, yes. But even the process itself, from decision-making like the first administration meeting we've seen in Cairo today, all the way to the practicalities of actually making it work on the ground, is going to take a long time. And of course, that doesn't meet the needs of the people in Gaza immediately.
Absolutely. The fact that they were able to put together this 15-member technocratic committee, I think, is an important progress, particularly because the head of this committee is a former senior civil servant from the Palestinian administration. Although he originally comes from Gaza, but he worked with the Palestinian administration. The fact that Hamas have approved him means that they've somehow papered over some of their differences with the PA. And I think that's a step in the right direction. Now, a lot depends on what the Americans and the other, all those 24 leaders who stood behind Trump are willing to put, what pressure are they willing to put on Israel to make things move forward. And what some of the ideas that they're debating about, for example, removing the rubble and using it to reclaim land for Gaza, in principle, it looks like an attractive proposition, but it's quite dangerous because when you create new land, this is where the investment is going to run. The investors are willing to work in virgin land, and they will be taking over the seafront of Gaza, so there'll be a lot of attractions there, but the Gazan population will be left behind. And for them, I think particularly important is the ability to be able to rebuild on the footprint where they left home, even for the refugees who came from 1948 and 1967. For them, it's important they return to their refugee camps and they have the ability to rebuild because they see that camp as a stepping stone towards their ultimate return. Now, the Israelis would like them to believe that this current reconstruction is the permanent relocation of those refugees. They will lose their right to return to the Palestinian territories. Now, all of these issues are really critical, and the difficulty with all of this is what do you do to make life as bearable as possible? You saw in your area report, a lot of things are not working, health, education, etc. And that requires that we really approach the reconstruction with not too much ambitions at this moment, but as much as possible equity and maybe neighborhood by neighborhood approach, working on with the survivors, those who survived the genocide, making sure that their social, psychological needs are addressed by engaging them directly in the planning and the reconstruction of their own neighborhoods. And I think the neighborhood approach is really, really important because of the identity, because of the solidarity amongst themselves. I suspect Israel will be against that because they wanted very much to destroy the social fabric of the Palestinians, and they made a lot of effort to mix them all together. Now, if we're able to bring a degree of normality in terms of belonging, then I think it would be much easier for the Palestinians to take off from that step.
Just briefly, I want to ask you about the role of Hamas in all of this, because of course this is all happening as part of or a broader part of the phase 2 of the ceasefire, part of which of course is the demilitarization of Gaza, the handing over of weapons by Hamas to some other authority yet to be defined. At the same time, Hamas is playing a role in the day-to-day lives of people in Gaza. That, again, is going to, one would imagine, be a difficult block to overcome when you try to balance that out.
I think total demilitarization is now out of the window as a concept, because there hasn't been an international security force forthcoming to take control in Gaza. And if you listen carefully to what Witkoff and others have been saying over the last few days, they're now talking about taking away from Hamas the possibility to threaten Israel, which means heavy weapons, missiles, etc. But they can't but rely on Hamas to keep the peace on day-to-day basis within the Gaza Strip. And this is why the appointment of this committee was very much with the approval of Hamas.
Sultan Barakat, we appreciate it as always. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.